Welcome back to the Band Guide, where we use GarageBand to create professional sounding music. I'm your band guy, Colin, and today I want to talk to you about stacking effects on your lead vocal. This is a very common approach in most professional mixes, having multiple types of effects that are all doing something slightly different, and they all kind of blend together to give us this cohesive, larger-than-life vocal sound. Now, there's a few pieces of this, but fundamentally all we're using here is reverb and delay. So don't overcomplicate this. There's only really two types of things going on. Now, reverb and delay are great, but they're only a piece of the puzzle. They're nice, they sound nice, they definitely add a vibe to your song, but if you want your mix to sound professional, then you need to be putting in all the other pieces of the puzzle. And I want to give you something to help with that. I've put together a 6-step checklist that just walks through the 6 steps that all professional mixes have and how you can do them inside GarageBand completely free. There's a link in the description below where you can pick it up. It will really help you out because, as I said, these effects that we're going to talk about in this video are important. They're a piece of the puzzle, but it's not the only things that you need to be doing for your music to sound professional. So let's go ahead and jump in and start talking about stacking vocal effects. So the first vocal effect that we have working here is a really short room reverb sound. Now, if you watched last week's video where we talk about having a small realistic room that all of your instruments are in, I often have a little bit of that on my lead vocal as well. So if we listen to this lead vocal here in solo, I'll turn off the master echo and I'll exaggerate this master reverb here that's set to kind of an ambient small room setting.
I've faced all my fears, your love is all I need.
So it's just a really, really small room. It's kind of exaggerated sounding, but it's really short and it's the same reverb that all of our other instruments are going to in the song. So that gives it kind of a realistic space around our mix. So I often like to blend a small amount of that onto the lead vocal. Okay, the second effect that we'll talk about is just the master echo. I'm sure you've played around with this. This is a great long delay. Now, long delays are not appropriate in all songs and they're not appropriate at all times. So this is one that is definitely not in all of my mixes. And if it is, then sometimes it just kicks on just the chorus. It's not in the verses, or sometimes it's only the verses and not in the choruses. But this is another very, very common effect type on lead vocals. If we exaggerate that here.
I wish you were here and you will be next time.
So just a straight up, you're repeating the line, it's delaying the line, echoing the line. Now with this, I do recommend playing around on the actual master echo settings and making it a little bit darker so it's not as bright and upfront as the lead vocal line. If the echoes are a little bit darker, just by taking this color knob and turning it down a little bit, then that will help it kind of sit tucked back in the mix a little bit better. Okay, those are nothing revolutionary. I'm sure you've heard and thought about and probably even used the lead master echo and master reverb on your vocals. The next two are a little less common, and I strongly recommend that you nearly always, if not always, use these on your vocals, some combination of these. The first is a slap delay. So a slap delay can sound a couple different ways. This is one example here.
I wish you were here.
It's really, really filtered.
Next time. I faced all my fears, your love is all I need.
Sounds interesting, right? It's kind of telephony. It's pretty obvious in this mix. This is a more prominent one than I do in some mixes. It's a really, really fast delay. And all we've done to set this up is we've duplicated the lead vocal, and you can do that just by holding Option on your keyboard and dragging down on the lead vocal. And that gives you an entire second lead vocal track. And then we've taken that second track, and all we did was add a tape delay at the end of it and set it to be super, super fast. So we set it on the fastest setting, set the deviation even faster. So we just took this and drew this back a little bit. And then we filtered it out a little bit. I turned up the filter on the low cut here so that it wouldn't have all the low end information. And then we set the dry to 0 and the wet to 100%. So this is only the slap delay on this channel. And then you can mix that in volume-wise into the context of your mix.
I wish you were here and you will be next time.
To where it's feeling right. I really love this effect. It's really, really great. There's two main ways that I set it. The first is just the tape delay, and that's just going to be mono up the center, which is often where your lead vocal is. The second way is a little more subtle, but adds a little bit of width around the vocal, and that's with the stereo delay. I've done an entire video on this, so I'll link to that above if you want to see how I've set this exact one, but this one adds a little bit of width to the vocal if we listen to this in solo.
I wish you were here and you will be next time.
And this one is a little more subtle.
I faced all my fears, your love is all I need.
But when you take it away,
I wish you were here and you will be next time.
you don't really notice it when it's on, but as soon as it goes away, the vocals really get just less present. It's kind of interesting. I really like this effect. I use this maybe more than the tape delay, but I really like the tape delay kind of as more of an effect sometimes. Depending on the vibe of the song, the mix of the song, I'll go with this tape delay style setting that sounds a little more like this.
I wish you were here and you will.
Very cool effect. Okay, and then the final one we're going to talk about is a plate reverb. We duplicated the vocal in the same exact way to create this track, and then just added the space designer on the end of it, and then just went to small spaces, found the plate, and then in this case, I really liked the 1.1 second vocal plate. Sometimes I go shorter if it really needs a really, really short reverb. Sometimes I'll go longer. I'll go into large, and there's plate reverbs here that are 5 seconds long that sound really cool, I'm not gonna lie. Let's listen to this vocal plate in solo here.
I wish you were here and you will be next time.
So just a nice reverb sound. And then if we want to hear what a longer would sound like, let's just play with that for 1 second. Under plate, we have this 5 second.
I wish you were here and you will be next time.
It's a lot longer, right? So we'll go back to the short plate for what we're doing on this song. Let's see, vocal plate. Again, I'll keep the dry output at 0, so it's only the reverb on this channel.
I wish you were here.
Now again, because we've set this on its own track, we can now just blend this volume of just this reverb into the song to where we want it to be.
I wish you were here and you will be next time.
And we can automate that. You know, if certain parts of the song we want that reverb to be a little bit quieter, we can automate it to be quieter at those points in the song. And if we want to come up, we can automate it to come up in other points of the song. So we get really clear, easy control on exactly how much reverb is happening. The other thing it allows us to do is apply really specific EQ to this plate. So here I've done a big EQ on this that really cuts out a lot of low and low mid information that would be really muddy otherwise, and some high information that would be just a little bit too bright and harsh if it was left in. So listen to this, I'll exaggerate the volume of this vocal plate here, and when I turn this off, notice how muddy it sounds, and when I turn this back on, notice how it clears it up. It just makes it more present, and it kind of brings it a little bit more forward.
I wish you were here and you will be next time.
Really muddy, right?
I wish you were here and you will be next time. I faced all my fears and love is all I need.
So I actually found how I wanted to EQ this in the context of the mix. I listened while this was at a really high volume and played around with my EQ until I found where it was working and cutting through well, and where it was too muddy and cut down in those areas. And then I just bring the volume back in and mix it to where it makes sense.
I wish you were here and you will be next time. I faced all my fears and love is all I need.
Sounds pretty good right there to me. Okay, now let's listen to all of these tracks. I'll go and turn off all these effects and I'll turn them back on, and notice how the vocal just feels a little bit lonely and small in the context of the mix without any of these effects on, and how these really help fill it out and fill out the sonic space around the vocal so that it's more present while sitting back in the mix a little bit more in a very natural way. Check it out.
I wish you were here and you will be next time. I faced all my fears and love is all I need. I wish you were here and you will be next time. I faced all my fears and love is all I need. I wish you were.
Subtle, right? I always say this, it's subtle, but mixing is subtle things that add up. We want to get these to a level where they're audible and then turn them down just a little bit. That's how I typically am setting the volumes. I get it to where it sounds good, and then I get the volume up to where I notice it, and then I turn it down just a little bit. That's usually the right volume for these individual tracks. And even though this is subtle, even when it's all together, it's subtle, it makes a difference. All these little things add up to a more professional sound. And that is the key to mixing, not one big, huge thing that just makes our mix sound great. If that was the case, then we would all just have that thing and we would just put it on our mix and it would just sound great. That's not the case. We have to do a lot of subtle, small things across our mix. And if you do them, then your mix can sound professional no matter where you're doing it. If you're working in Pro Tools or Logic Pro X or GarageBand, if you're doing the right things subtly across the entire mix, it can sound professional anywhere. And I want to give you something to help with that. As I said earlier, effects are great, but they're only one piece of the mixing puzzle. So if you really want your music to sound great, you have to have all of the pieces in place. And I put together a 6-step checklist that walks through exactly what all those pieces are, so you can do all of them inside GarageBand completely free. There's a link in the description below where you can pick it up, so be sure to grab that. Before we go, I want to hear from you. What are your favorite effects on your lead vocal? How do you like to process your lead vocal? Let me know in the comments below. If this video is helpful, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next week with another video.
One thing